Richard Miller was 48 years old, a man with a quiet demeanor, shoulders slightly slouched from years of carrying burdens no one saw. His house, modest, a little outdated, stood quietly in a New Jersey suburb, tucked beneath a canopy of fading maple leaves. On the table before him sat a photo, a memory frozen in time. A woman with warm eyes and chestnut hair. A little girl laughing, arms wrapped around her father's neck. And him, smiling, genuinely, like he hadn't yet known what it meant to live without her. Anna, his wife, his best friend, had been gone for 7 years. Cancer. The kind that doesn't wait. The kind that doesn't care if your daughter is only 10 years old when her mother vanishes from her world. Since that day, Richard had lived 2 lives. The one the world saw, a man who worked, paid his bills, nodded politely. And the one at home, a man who folded little socks in silence, who burned dinner while trying to remember how Anna used to do it, who read parenting blogs at 2 a.m. just to figure out how to talk to a teenage girl. He had promised Sophie, his daughter, that she wouldn't feel the absence.
"I'll be both mom and dad,"
he told her once on the night of the funeral. She was wrapped in a blanket, crying so hard her small shoulders shook. He remembered holding her and thinking, I don't know how, but I have to. For a while, it worked. Sophie clung to him in the early years. She'd wait by the window for him to get home. They'd make pancakes every Sunday, messy, uneven, half-burnt, but full of laughter. But time has a way of changing things. Little girls become teenagers. Laughter gives way to locked doors. Warm hugs turn into eye rolls. Now 17, Sophie spent most of her time in her room, headphones on, eyes glued to her screen. She barely spoke to her father anymore, except when she was annoyed.
Why are you always hovering? You wouldn't get it, you're old. Can you not embarrass me in front of people?
Each comment landed like a quiet slap. He never raised his voice, never snapped. He just absorbed it, like a sponge that never wrung itself out. It wasn't that Richard expected gratitude. He didn't want medals for raising his child alone, but a little respect, a kind word once in a while, a moment where she'd look at him and still see the man who tried. Instead, all he saw in her eyes now was contempt. He didn't understand her music, didn't get the jokes she shared with her friends, didn't dress like their fathers, young, trendy, tattooed. He was just Richard, the widower, the man who used to matter. Most nights, after she shut her door, Richard would sit back in his chair, staring at the old family photo. He'd whisper to Anna,
"She's drifting away from me. I don't know how to pull her back. Did I do something wrong? Or is this just how it's meant to be?"
There were no answers, only silence and the ticking of the clock. But silence can be dangerous. It can turn love into resentment, worry into frustration, and a father's heartbreak into something darker, something he never thought himself capable of.
It started with small things, a slammed door, a bitter tone, a sarcastic smile when he asked how her day was. At first, Richard told himself it was normal. Teenage years were a storm. You didn't steer through them. You just tried to survive without drowning. But over time, Sophie's words grew sharper, her glances colder, and the house, once filled with warm messes and imperfect pancakes, grew quieter. Not peaceful, just empty. One night, Richard knocked gently on her door.
"Sophie, dinner's ready. I made that pasta you like."
A pause, then her voice, muffled but edged with disdain.
You don't have to try so hard. I'll eat when I feel like it.
She came out a few minutes later, glanced at the table, and rolled her eyes.
This again?
Richard forced a smile.
"You used to love this, remember? You said I made it better than mom."
That was when I was 10, Dad.
She sat down, scrolled on her phone, and added with a scoff.
Can't you just order something normal like other people?
He sat across from her, barely touching his food, watching her, studying her. This wasn't the girl he raised. Or maybe he had raised her wrong. Richard had spent the last 7 years doing everything he could to fill the hole Anna left behind. But what if, despite all the effort, all the sacrifices, he had simply failed. Later that week, he found out Sophie had skipped school again. The school had called. Third absence this month. She told them she was sick, but her Instagram had told a different story. Photos with friends, laughing, posing at a skate park he didn't even know existed. That night, Richard waited in the living room. The lights dimmed, the rain heavier now. Sophie walked in, soaked but smiling faintly, until she saw him.
Seriously? You're waiting up like I'm 10?
He stood slowly, eyes tired.
You skipped school.
She shrugged.
So? Everyone does it.
That's not the point. You lied. Again.
Her jaw tightened, her voice turned sharp.
You're not my boss, Dad. And honestly, stop pretending like you're some perfect parent. You wouldn't last a day in my life.
Richard froze. That last sentence, it wasn't just disrespect, it was dismissal, an erasure of everything he had given up for her. He remembered the nights he worked overtime to pay for her ballet classes, the holidays he spent alone so she could visit her mother's family and feel close to Anna, the shirts he wore threadbare so she could have the brand name ones. None of it mattered now. To Sophie, he was just a man stuck in the past, an obstacle, an embarrassment. Later that week, she threw a glass. Not at him, but close enough. They had argued again, this time about her grades.
You're ruining my life.
She had screamed.
You're controlling, overbearing. Just stop pretending you know what I need.
The glass hit the wall and exploded into jagged shards just like the last of his patience. He didn't yell, didn't curse. He just stood there, heart thudding like a war drum in his chest. And Sophie? She stood her ground, arms crossed, face defiant, almost proud. That night, Richard didn't sleep. He sat in the kitchen until sunrise, the pieces of broken glass swept into a silent pile in the trash. But inside him, the real damage remained. Cracks, too deep to patch, spreading wider every day. What do you do when the child you love becomes someone who no longer sees you as human, as a father, as anything at all? Richard didn't have the answer, but something inside him, something quiet and dark, had begun to stir. Not rage, not hatred, just exhaustion. And exhaustion, when steeped in grief and silence, is a dangerous thing. Some storms don't come from the sky. Some storms build inside people, quietly, slowly, until one day they can no longer be contained. It was a Sunday afternoon. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still pressed low over the house like a warning. Richard had spent the morning cleaning the garage, one of the few places in the house that still felt like it belonged to him. He found an old box of Anna's things, her gardening gloves, her perfume bottle, still faintly scented, a love letter she had once slipped into his lunchbox. He sat on a dusty stool, holding the note like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Then came the sound. Sophie. She'd gone out again last night, never said where, came home past midnight reeking of alcohol and laughter that didn't belong in this house. Richard stood at the bottom of the stairs. He called her name once.
Sophie?
No answer. He climbed the stairs slowly, paused at her door, knocked.
We need to talk.
The door swung open violently.
What?
She snapped, eyes half rolled. She was wearing heavy eyeliner, black lipstick, and a borrowed leather jacket that wasn't hers.
You've been gone all weekend. You didn't answer your phone. I was worried.
I'm 17, not 7. You don't get to control me anymore.
This isn't about control, it's about respect.
She scoffed, loudly.
Respect? From me to you? Please. You live in the past. Mom died and you died with her. You just didn't notice.
Richard's breath caught in his throat.
What did you say?
I said, she repeated, her voice venomous.
You died with her. You're nothing but a shell now. Look at you. You're pathetic. You think I look up to you? I feel sorry for you.
Then she stepped back and with a smirk knocked over the photo of Anna on her dresser. It hit the ground face first. Something snapped. He didn't remember grabbing the clippers, didn't remember pulling the chair from the kitchen into her room, didn't remember Sophie screaming until she was already sitting down, forced by his grip. He didn't hit her, he didn't yell, he simply held her shoulders and turned on the machine. Sophie's voice was shrill, shaking the walls.
What are you doing? Dad, stop.
But he didn't stop. The first lock of her hair fell to the floor like a symbol being stripped away. Then the second. Then another. She screamed, cried, fought to break free, but Richard held her there, not out of rage, but out of something else entirely. Desperation, helplessness. A father's shattered identity, trying to make itself seen again.
You want to act like none of this matters?
He said, voice trembling.
You want to spit on everything your mother believed in? Then look in the mirror now. This is who you are becoming.
When it was over, the room was silent. Hair covered the floor like fallen feathers after a violent storm. Sophie was curled in the chair, sobbing, hands covering her head. Richard looked down at his own hands, still holding the clippers, buzzing faintly, warm with her body heat. He turned them off, and in the silence, it hit him. He wasn't a hero, wasn't a protector. He had become the thing he feared most, the man his daughter now had every right to hate. He backed away slowly, stepped over her hair, closed the door behind him. Downstairs, he collapsed into the armchair. The photo of Anna, still cracked, stared up at him from the floor.
I'm sorry,
he whispered.
I didn't know what else to do.
But Anna wasn't there. And Sophie, she might never forgive him.
Morning arrived without asking permission. The house smelled of stale coffee and rain-soaked wood. Downstairs, Richard sat slumped in his armchair, still wearing yesterday's clothes, the clippers lying silent on the table beside him. Upstairs, a door was closed. Behind it, Sophie sat on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, head pressed against the wall. Her scalp felt raw, exposed. She couldn't stop running her fingers over it, as if each pass would somehow undo what had happened. Neither of them had slept. By mid-morning, Richard stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at the closed door. He opened his mouth, closed it again. The words wouldn't come. When he finally climbed up, he knocked once, lightly.
Sophie?
Silence.
I'm sorry.
The door opened a crack. Sophie's eyes, red and swollen, stared at him with a mixture of rage and confusion.
You had no right.
Her voice was hoarse.
You had no right to do that to me.
Richard swallowed. His hands trembled.
I know I crossed the line. I've been trying to hold everything together since your mom died. I've been trying to be enough, but yesterday,
He lowered his head.
I failed you.
She said nothing. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. For the first time in years, the anger drained from Richard's voice. What remained was the grief he had hidden even from himself. He stepped back.
I'm here when you're ready to talk. I'm not going anywhere.
Then he went downstairs, leaving the door open behind him. Hours passed. Sophie sat alone, staring at the mirror. Her reflection didn't look like her anymore. Her hair, once long, vibrant, a shield between her and the world, was gone. All that was left was her face, bare, unforgiving. But in the rawness of that image, she saw something else too. Her father's eyes in hers, the same exhaustion, the same ache. Downstairs, Richard moved slowly through the kitchen. He found an old envelope tucked behind a cabinet, Anna's handwriting on the front. It was a letter she had written before she died. He opened it with shaking fingers. Inside, just one line.
When she grows, she'll push you away. Don't let go, even when it hurts.
That evening, Richard cooked again. Not pasta, not pancakes, just a simple soup, his grandmother's recipe. He set 2 bowls on the table, unsure if anyone else would come down. Upstairs, Sophie opened her door. The smell drifted up, familiar, despite everything. She hesitated, then pattered softly down the stairs. She didn't sit right away, just stood there, arms crossed, head lowered.
Why? Why did you do it?
She whispered. Richard's eyes filled, but he didn't look away.
Because I was angry, because I felt invisible, because I forgot I'm your father, not your judge. I'm sorry.
She looked at him for a long moment. Then she sat, picked up a spoon, tasted the soup. It was too salty, but warm. They didn't fix everything that night. You don't undo years of distance with one apology. You don't rebuild trust with a bowl of soup. But somewhere between the silence and the steam rising from their bowls, a small, fragile space opened. Not forgiveness yet, but the possibility of it. Richard glanced at Sophie's bare head. He didn't see rebellion or contempt anymore. He saw his daughter, and for the first time in months, she let herself see him. Love isn't neat. It isn't perfect. Sometimes it comes out in broken shapes, in moments you regret. But sometimes, even after the storm, there's still enough left to try again.